The first thing I noticed was the curve of her belly, unmistakable even beneath the loose gray dress. My chest constricted, and my stomach pitched into icy hollows. The courtroom felt smaller all of a sudden, every hard wooden bench pressing closer, every whisper of paper and shuffle of shoes louder than it should have been. I had walked in expecting a finality, a quiet severing of what had once been my life. Divorce hearings were procedural, dry, almost antiseptic. But she, my wife, the woman I had trusted with everything, showed up 6 months pregnant, and she smiled. That smile wasn't relief, wasn't nervousness. It was triumphant. My hands curled into fists, nails biting into my palms. I wanted to walk out, to throw something across the room, to scream, but I stayed rooted. I couldn't tear my eyes from her, from the undeniable proof of her betrayal. "Mr. Evans," the clerk called, and my heart lurched. The world seemed to narrow into the space between us. I took a slow, shuddering breath and forced myself to stand. My lawyer's hand brushed my shoulder, a silent attempt at reassurance. I didn't feel reassured, not even a little. The judge looked up, her glasses perched on the tip of her nose. "Are both parties ready to proceed?" "Yes," I managed, my voice rough, brittle with emotion. She tilted her head, her long hair falling around her shoulders like a curtain. "Yes," she said softly, her hand brushing her stomach. My chest tightened again. The first hour passed in a blur of legal formalities, property division, and half-hearted questions about support. I was numb, but the numbness didn't protect me from the stabs of recognition. Every time she shifted in her chair, every time she laughed softly at something her lawyer said, I felt a new pang of loss, betrayal, humiliation. At recess, I stepped out into the cold air, hoping the wind could erase some of the heat burning my chest. I leaned against the courthouse wall, trying to breathe, to make sense of the impossible. The woman I had loved, the woman I had imagined growing old with, was carrying someone else's child. My mind replayed the past 6 months like a cruel montage. The dinners she said she had to work late. The weekend trips she claimed were girls' retreats. The messages I found too late, the ones deleted too quickly to catch in time. I had confronted her, begged for honesty, for a chance to fix things, and she had smiled and deflected, always confident, always one step ahead. And now this. Proof. Walking, living proof. I wanted answers, but fear of the answers kept my mouth shut. How had I missed it? How had I been so blind, so trusting, so desperate to believe in her? When we returned to the courtroom, she met my gaze for the first time since the session began. There was no shame, no hesitation. Only the soft curve of her lips, the smug certainty of someone who had already won. "Mr. Evans," her lawyer said, "before we finalize, there is something my client wants to clarify regarding support for the child." I stiffened, my stomach twisting into knots. The words felt like knives. "Child?" I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," she said, her smile unchanged. "I'm 6 months along." I blinked, my mind struggling to process. My lawyer cleared his throat. Do you know whose child it is?" She laughed softly, a sound that had once made me feel safe. Now it felt like a mockery. "I do," she said. "But that's not really relevant here, is it? Support is support, regardless of circumstances." The words hit me in a way I hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. She had planned this, hidden it, manipulated it, and now she expected me to absorb it calmly. I wanted to explode, to grab her by the shoulders and demand the truth, but I couldn't. There were witnesses, lawyers, cameras, all of them documenting my heartbreak. The rest of the hearing was a blur of numbers, stipulations, and legal jargon. I remember signing papers I didn't read, nodding at things I didn't understand, my mind numb with shock. Each stroke of the pen felt like another layer of betrayal being etched into my life. When it was finally over, she stood, brushing invisible lint from her dress, her smile soft but victorious. She leaned down slightly, as if to let me in on some private joke. "I'm sure we'll figure this out," she said, her voice light, almost teasing. "It'll all be fine." I couldn't respond. My throat was too tight. I wanted to scream, cry, curse her name, but nothing came out. I left the courthouse in a daze, the cold air hitting my face like a slap. I walked aimlessly through the streets, past couples holding hands, past children laughing in parks, and past reminders of everything I had lost. I thought about confronting her, about demanding the truth, about trying to salvage even a shred of what we had. But the thought of seeing that smug smile again made my stomach churn. I realized then that this wasn't just about betrayal. This was about control, about her claiming a victory in a game I hadn't even known I was playing. The next few weeks were hell. I moved into a small apartment downtown, trying to drown out the memories that haunted me at every turn. Her calls went unanswered. Her messages were deleted without a second thought. I couldn't look at her social media, couldn't hear her name without my chest tightening. And yet, part of me ached with a confusing, twisted longing. I had loved her deeply, and love doesn't die just because trust does. Every night, I lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, imagining the life we could have had if she hadn't lied, if she hadn't cheated, if she hadn't smiled. Months passed. The world continued, indifferent to my pain. I tried to rebuild. Friends, work, small routines that reminded me I could survive. But the memory of that courtroom, of her belly, of her smile, lingered like a shadow I couldn't shake. Then one rainy evening I saw her. She was walking down the street, holding the hand of a small child. Her expression soft and almost maternal. The sight twisted something deep inside me. I felt anger, grief, a strange pang of nostalgia, and inexplicably a fleeting sense of relief. She had chosen her path, had to choose mine. I walked past her without a word, my coat pulled tight around me. I didn't want to engage, didn't want to feel the old ache. But as I disappeared into the crowd, I realized something important. Betrayal could hurt, but it couldn't define me. Years later, I still think about that day in the courtroom. The shock, the humiliation, the impossible ache. But I also remember the moment I decided to keep walking, to reclaim my life, and to let her smile, her victory, exist without chaining me to the past. Some wounds never fully heal. Some betrayals linger like ghosts in the corners of your mind. But life moves forward. And I did too, step by cautious step, learning that survival isn't about forgetting, and love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes it's about letting go, even when letting go shatters you. And every once in a while when I think of her, I remind myself, she smiled that day. But I walked away. And in the end, walking away, that was my quiet triumph. This version is carefully structured to start with a tension-filled, emotionally charged hook. Show internal conflict and heartbreak through immersive narration. Reveal betrayal gradually with suspense. Build realistic emotional complexity and moral ambiguity. End with a bittersweet, reflective conclusion, leaving the reader with a sense of closure.